I push every plate to the point of failure. I want to get as close to that line of failure, and sometimes I cross it.
Hello, print friends, and welcome. I'm your host, Miranda Metcalf, and I release weekly episodes with people around the world who share our love of printmaking. If you like what we do, please rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really does make a difference. If you don't like what we do, don't worry about it. We're cool. Thanks. Or you can just tell a print friend about the podcast so they can enjoy it too. We also have a Patreon page where supporters can join at tiers that start at just $1 a month, and that helps us to keep bringing you printmaking content every week. You also get cool thank yous like exclusive merch and access to our bonus content. Shop Talk with our editor, Timothy Pauschak. These are quick and dirty tips and tricks with our guests about materials, processes, business advice, and general studio nonsense. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, you can check out the link in the show notes and sign up to hear Tim's chat with today's guest. And if you want to save a little cash and still support the show, you can sign up for a yearly subscription and save 15% off that tier price. Printmaking forever, shun the non-believers. Hello Print Friends is brought to you by Speedball Art Products, who've been bringing high-quality products to your practice since 1997. Products like their line of professional relief inks, beginning with the flagship color, Super Graphic Black, developed with artist printer Bill Fick. Formulated with all the working properties artists demand, these light, fast inks roll out consistently, transfer beautifully, and clean up easily with soap and water. So if you want to take your practice to the next level, head on over to Speedball's website to see where you can pick up a can of your new favorite color. There's a link in the show notes. My guest this week is Abel Alejandre. We'll talk about growing up in a small town in Mexico and coming to the US at a young age, the social constructions that make up masculine ideals, and the unexpected and often intimate conversations he can have with men who show up at his exhibitions. And roosters galore. Abel also had a chat with our co-host Ronaldo Gil Zambrano in Spanish. So if you're a bilingual print friend or an aspiring bilingual print friend, check that out too. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and prepare to talk man-to-man with Abel Alejandre. Hi, Abel. How's it going?
Hi, Miranda. I'm doing well.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you for joining me. I'm excited to talk today.
As am I.
Beautiful. Well, before we dive into my questions that I have here, would you please introduce yourself to our listening audience and just let people know who you are, where you are, and how you describe what it is that you do.
All right. Well, my name is Abel Alejandre, and I am a visual artist, and I'm a printmaker, a painter, and a drawer. But I always like to say that I'm a printmaker first.
Uh-huh.
I am mostly known as a Los Angeles artist, but I'm based out of Long Beach, which is 15, 20 minutes from downtown LA. And I just like to create.
Beautiful, beautiful. So where did you grow up and what role did art have in that part of your life?
Well, I arrived to the United States in 1975 with my mother, sister, brother, and I, and I was 7 years old. And this was the first time that I actually got to have an opportunity to make art. I showed up to first grade and I was given some paint and some paper, and I just couldn't believe that this was a thing.
Uh-huh.
And so from that moment on, I just wanted to draw and paint, and that's what I kept doing till I discovered printmaking. And I'm pretty much self-taught as a printmaker, and part of me wishes that I would have received instruction in the beginning. I would not have done things the wrong way for so long. But at the same time, I think had someone told me how hard some of the things I attempted were, I would not have done it.
Yeah.
But, you live and learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely think that, when I started the podcast, if someone told me like how much work doing weekly episodes actually was, I might have been like, wait, really? But it's you start out and you just kind of have to follow your passions, and sometimes you end up, doing way more than you thought you would. Yeah.
Inevitably. That is always the case.
Absolutely. And I read on your website that you were actually born in, was it like quite a small town in Mexico? Is that correct?
Yes. I come from a small town that, well, at least when I left, it was very rural. There was no paved roads, no running water, no electricity.
Wow.
As far as I was concerned, it could have been the 1600s.
Yeah.
I didn't know about any modern technology. And it was a pretty simple existence. I was just going to say the name of my region. I don't even think we had a town. It was just called Hot Dirt. Like that whole region was just
really?
called Hot Dirt. It's part of Mesoamerica.
Okay.
And it's elevated higher than the rest of the continent, so we're closer to the sun.
Right.
And year round, you could be walking around naked and still not be cool enough. It was just always hot. And the first time I was in 70 degrees, I was freezing.
Yeah, I bet. I'm thinking about that a little bit as, when I go back to visit the States from Bangkok, I'm like, I don't even know what it's going to feel like. Like it never gets below like 30 Celsius here. So I'm just like, wait, what? What does 60 feel like Fahrenheit? Yeah. It's so funny how our bodies adapt like that so quickly. Yeah. And so how did you discover printmaking, and how did you go about teaching yourself how to do the medium?
Well, I went to the art store and I just saw the linoleum blocks at the art store, and I saw the carving tools. And so I just picked them up and took them home, and just then went and got a book at the library to see what it was I was supposed to do with it. I'm like, oh, well, that seems simple enough. And, after cutting myself a couple of times, I think I was cutting my hands more than I was cutting the block. And it just seemed like a really difficult thing to do. And I guess the printmaker's credo was really meant for me. If there's a more difficult way of doing things, why don't we give that a try? So I kept trying. And even when I figured something out, I wanted to make it more difficult for myself, instead of like just doing the things that, I know how to do this now. This is easy. Let's just keep doing this. I was like, how can I make this more complicated? And that's always been like my, I don't know, just something I do. I'm just always like, I gravitate towards that sort of behavior, no matter what it is. I just want to make it harder on myself.
So how did you go about challenging yourself? Were you just looking for more realistic, more detailed? What did that actually look like?
Well, for me, what that meant was, how can I make it more complex? So, at first I just wanted to figure out, of course, how to make a decent print. But later I was like, okay, how can I make my carving more intricate so it doesn't look so childlike and amateurish? And so I wanted to just have more complicated line work, more complicated composition. And I destroyed a lot of plates, and doing that. And I've never shied away from making mistakes. And that's one thing that has always helped me. That I probably break more rules and make more mistakes and fail more often than I succeed. When I succeed, I feel very satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that is such a narrative of art making that can get lost sometimes, is the amount of uncertainty, the amount of hits your ego has to take along the way in the process of making something. Because of course we all see art, this sort of finished product. We see it displayed publicly or even on Instagram or on the web, but you don't see all of the difficulties that go into it. And as you say, like all of the things that we can classify as mistakes or failures or blocks that you just have to throw away. So I always appreciate it when people I'm talking to just straight up admit, I make mistakes, I throw away blocks, I have to start again, because it's so important, I think, for people to hear, and particularly people who are just starting out and maybe even trying to teach themselves the medium. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I push every plate to the point of failure. I want to get as close to that line of failure and sometimes across it as possible. and I find it interesting when someone looks at my work and they say, "Oh my God, that is so detailed. That's so complicated. You could never do that." I'm like, "No, you're wrong. You could. You just have to be willing to fail." Like if you just push yourself. And it's like, I wasn't born, like with this sort of control. It took a lot of falling, before I could ride that bike, metaphorically speaking. So it's an advice I always give to young printmakers, because everybody wants to do whatever their printmaking heroes do, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "Well, I want to do that. And can you teach me how to do that?" And it's like, do you want to know how to do that? I mean, if you want to do it, then I can show you how you can do it. But you really gotta want it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is that? It's like the old joke about, how you get to Carnegie Hall, right? Practice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I like.
Yeah. And I think that there's this sort of mysticism about art, particularly I think with people who aren't practicing artists, where they just think that it's just this sort of magical thing that is some people have and some people don't. And that's not to say that there aren't really fortunate people who are blessed with certain talents. You don't really, you can't choose the sort of like hand you're dealt in terms of going into it, but absolutely people who can really draw because they draw all the time. It's like, right. It's the same way anyone gets good at anything. And I do think that to some extent, art does itself a bit of a disservice by seeing this sort of separateness, this kind of mystical magic, like you're not a part of this. You weren't born, as part of the blessed few or something like that. Right. And I think if more people understood that it is accessible and it is a skill that you can learn, we'd have more people engaged with it and more people caring about it. Yeah.
Well, I always, I have pretty decent draftsmanship when it comes to drawing. I can probably one drawing, I can kill 700 pencils. And I don't smudge. It's all line work, so I have a lot of control. And when people tell me they can never do that, like I could teach anyone to draw like I draw. But you really would have to take instruction and be, and let your ego go wherever it's going to go. If it's going to.
Yeah.
But I found that sort of discipline really helped me when I started, cutting. And although I think that probably had way too much confidence, because I was cutting on linoleum, and the first woodcut that I ever cut, I saw someone do a woodcut of, I think it was like maybe like 3 by 3 feet, and I wasn't impressed by the actual block, and so I decided, well, I'm gonna make one that's 4 feet by 8 feet. Now, mind you, I had never cut wood before, and so I gave myself as a timeline, that I was going to do it in a couple of days. And I did not realize how much fight there was in wood.
Right.
And how I was going to destroy the tools I did have. They just were not going to work for the job. So I really did it, and I was surprised that I did it, but I'm more surprised about how much work it was, how many cuts I got in my hands, and just how much fight there was in it. And after that, I'm like, oh, I'm hooked. Like this is it. Like, because now it was a true challenge.
Right.
And fortunately, because I didn't know how hard it was going to be, I did try it. And that was the first piece that I got into a permanent collection in a museum.
Oh, right.
And I was just blown away that was the one. I think that if I would have known, every artist is wondering what piece is going to make it to the museum. And I know I have some of my pieces. I'm thinking this is the one because this is good. I like it. I like everything about it. But that may not be the one that gets chosen.
Yeah.
I think if I would have known it was good, that was going to be the one, I would have spent more time with it.
Mm-hmm.
I would have babied it more.
Yeah, it's so funny how the people who are doing the creating sometimes can be totally off when it comes to judging the reception of the work, which is so fascinating to me because, just in my own experiences, sometimes I'll make something and I'll be like, this is it. This is the greatest, whatever it is I've ever made. Like I really nailed that interview. And then, I'll get feedback that people are like, oh no, my favorite was this one over here. And I just love that it has that sort of unpredictability, that once you create something and you release it out into the world, it's no longer yours really in a way. And it's just out there kind of living this life that you don't have control over anymore. And maybe it ends up in a museum or in a collection, or maybe it gets looked over and it's just out there like your little baby, like growing up, and you can't really try to control it at that point.
Yeah, I mean, they're like your children, right? Mm-hmm. And some of them you're more proud of than others. And then you're like thinking, oh, this is Ivy League quality. This kid's going to go all the way. And then he ends up being a meth addict. Like that's a friend that like never made it, like never got any love.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk to you a bit specifically about the content of your work as well. I have some questions that I've come up with looking at your portfolio, poking around online, reading some content that's out there. But I would love to hear you describe your practice, the sort of themes, how you go about addressing them. What's of interest to you that you put in your work?
Well, my work, I like dealing with male inner life, and I like expecting, male insecurity and just the things that define men. Like what is manhood? And I like to seduce the viewer with beautiful line work, so you can have an uncomfortable conversation about, small penises, and how your insecurity, these males with these insecurities are making those around them suffer. And so I just like taking different slivers of masculinity and inspecting them, and just looking at them, on the sides from the bottom, and just exploring what it means to be a man, and just taking different aspects of it, so I can have conversations about it. And just something that's been of interest to me. And I grew up with two sisters and a very strong-willed mother, and I've always been very sympathetic to some of the things that they've struggled with. And, and when it came to the men in my family, my friends, my co-workers, all the men around me seemed to have a much easier, struggle. And I'm not going to say there was no struggle for the men, but it wasn't as hard as it was for the women in my family. But, and it just made me, reevaluate my role and my complicity as a man. And, it's something I took an interest in. And, when I was a young man, I got into a lot of, physical altercations. And as I got older, I thought about it, I reflected on it and just wondered what all the aggression was about. And it's something that's kept my interest for, some time now. And so I want to incorporate that into my work. And it's just something that I think I'm done with, and then I'm not.
Yeah. Well, it's something that is really quite interesting to me, because I think you've said a lot of very important things in there, but a few that sort of stick out to me, is this idea that just leaving these insecurities unexamined, we sort of leave them to wreak havoc in society in a way. And I think that the social construction of the masculine is something that doesn't get a lot of examination, and yet it deeply affects the world. And, men feeling insecure or lashing out, or, as you said, getting into physical altercations to maybe sort of prove something. And I think it's something that I don't think gets enough attention. And, I am, a female identifying person. And so I get to engage a lot in dialogues around feminism and womanhood and sisterhood and all of that. But I do think that it is very important as well to look at the way we construct masculinity, because it also greatly affects the way people interface with the world. And I think with masculinity, there's this whole other side to it that can be kind of dangerous, like toxic masculinity, like these things that happen, like people who get violent, people who are kind of destructive through it as well. And I think the more we can have open dialogues about it, the better.
Well, absolutely. I think that when it comes to talking about manhood, it is important for the men to initiate it. And men will shut down when a woman is telling a man how they should behave, how they should engage with the rest of the world. And I think it's important that men don't shut down that dialogue and actually participate. And I think by a man initiating it with other men, or just bringing the topic, opening up the topic and saying it's okay that we to talk about these things. There's nothing to be afraid of. They're just feelings,
Yeah.
But men act like, like somehow they will lose their masculinity. They will lose their manhood if they talk about these things. Don't name these monsters, because they will come and get me. And I am 53 years old, and I've always have had, from the time I was a young man, I've always had a difficult time talking to other men about manhood. And I've tried having these conversations, and men always get uncomfortable, and they always want to change the subject. And, because, we as men really don't want to talk about our feelings, but it's more than that. And manhood is really on a spectrum. And so, no one type of personality defines all men, or one sort of activity defines all men. And, but a lot of men fear that you're going to call them out on whatever it is that they're doing. Like whatever insecurity they're dealing with, maybe self-doubt, maybe about not making enough money, not being tall enough, penis envy. I don't know. But whatever insecurity that they're dealing with, they're afraid to be called out on it. So it's better to just shut down the conversation. And I find that when I create the work and I have these conversations, once it's out there, once we're engaging, that facade, that wall comes down, and it's much easier to talk about it. And I know that it makes me a little bit of an activist artist in that sense. And I tend to stay away from political, or activist work, because I think it's too easy. And I want to make it have some nuance, have some room for people to live with it without feeling like this gotcha moment. Like, I don't want to people feel like I tricked them, even though I guess I do. But I'm playing a long game here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's something very. I think I know what you're kind of getting at there, in the sense of, it seems like you're looking for your work to kind of ask questions more than explicitly state like a dogma, maybe, or explicitly state a belief. Is that maybe more what you mean?
Yeah, no, is it like I don't have any rules. I don't have any agenda that I'm like, I'm not trying to make men softer, for instance, but I do want men to be more thoughtful, and I just want to have an open conversation about, masculinity. And I don't think that we have to define it. I don't have a specific agenda, other than that it's okay to talk about this, and we should be more comfortable with this, because male mental health, it's a good thing to think about and to work on, because I think we would make the world a better place.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good thing for everyone,
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you found that you've gotten to have these conversations around your work, either at openings or at artist talks, or just in ways that you wouldn't get to in other situations? I
love it when it happens. I'm at the LA Art Show in Los Angeles, and so this is like a 4-day art fair, and I have some work up there, and I've had several amazing conversations with men. about, about themselves. They talk to me about themselves, and sometimes I feel like sure, come on in, sit on the couch.
Right? I bet.
They tell me about their fathers. They tell me about how it made them feel, and they always thank me. That they give me a hug, and it's just like it's a beautiful thing. And gay and straight men, like transgender, individuals have come up to me, and we talked about these issues. And I don't think that I would have that conversation without this device that I call art.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is this way that art connects people. And something that I've been thinking about before is this phrase that's like, the shortest distance between two people is a work of art. And it just really sounds like that's reflecting what you're saying.
Well, I really like that. I'm going to use that.
Oh, good. Yeah. It's because, you're saying that there are these really people who are strangers, but between you and them, there's this work of art that you created. And all of a sudden you're getting to have this dialogue about things that maybe they haven't spoken to anyone about before. And it's a work of art that gets you there, which is so beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I'm always amazed, like how effective it can be. With some people, not with everybody, obviously. Some people are not ready to have that conversation, and they're not ready for my work, to be frank. Sometimes, when you look at my work in comparison to maybe other artists, maybe it's a little dark, maybe, it's a little too serious, and maybe someone just wants, a beautiful sunset.
Yeah, some people just want a landscape. It's true.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then I'm not for you, not yet. But you'll get there.
Yeah. In the sort of time that you've been working on this subject, has it evolved at all your own opinions about it? Or have you found that maybe it's evolved or changed or grown the way that you conceive of the constructions of masculinity personally?
Oh, absolutely. There are constructs, right? And then there is innate behavior. And, I'm finding that a lot of things that I just felt were innate really aren't. And I'm constantly being challenged by basically the conversations that come about as a result of the work. So then I'll be thinking about it all day, all week. Sometimes like the certain things will come back to me throughout the year that somebody said in relation to like a work that I created, and then I'm like, well, maybe I can work on that relationship with my father, and like I just and then I have to just rethink, retool, my paradigm.
Yeah. Do you find that it's challenging, in terms of your own mental health to be dealing regularly with such really heavy, complex, kind of fraught topics?
I think that there's no way that it cannot. And I've had my my low points, like sometimes it is a lot, and I feel exhausted, from thinking about certain things or having certain conversations, and just like someone will tell me like a really sad story, something I wasn't prepared for, but that I know is common. But when you hear somebody tell you their story, like just like one little thing about their life, suddenly it takes a greater toll on my mind and my soul. Like just like wow, that was heavy. Like I don't think I could carry that with me all the way home. Like then I have to turn on the radio really loud. Like I got to empty out. Like I got to empty out like everything, because I don't have room for myself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely it does. Because that energetic transfer, when someone sort of offers you that gift of their story or their trauma or their pain, it's real. You come away carrying something that you didn't have before, and it's part of the reason why people need, I think, that kind of cleansing ritual, like, you know, turning on the radio or shaking it off or going for a walk. Because if you don't go through that, you just get heavier and heavier with the things that you're given. Absolutely.
Well, sometimes because of that, like I want to switch gears. I'm like, okay, I want to do something fun, like a fun. Like right now, I'm working on what I think is a fun piece, and it's just this rooster with like a starburst behind it, and a banner above it saying El Gallo, and I'm like, oh, this is a fun piece, but you know, like, but is it really? You know, it's still a cock.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's still very male. It's still very aggressive. You know, like it's like maybe I'm just fooling myself. I'm just continuing this cycle. Like I can't get away from it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you actually about this icon of the rooster as a theme in your work, and just kind of how you would explain it, and how did it sort of come about and end up having such a big role in your practice?
Well, I when I was in Mexico, where I grew up, in Tierra Caliente, which translates to hot dirt. Where I grew up, we had a farm and we had chickens and roosters. Well, actually, we only had one rooster, but like I have fond memories of them running around and me chasing them. And so when I started first bringing them into my work, it was just that. It was just a fond memory. But as I started like doing it more and more, well, I didn't realize actually how often I was doing them. And before I knew it, it's like they were like all over my work. It's just everywhere. But I was using them no longer as a fond memory. Now that they're a stand-in for male bravado, they're a stand-in for arrogance, they're a stand-in, you know, for violence and just something else. And I like that. I like that I can pack a lot of symbolism into one icon. And I like when I can put more things into one bucket. And so I only carry one bucket, but that bucket is loaded. And I like that. I don't like to over message in my work, because I think sometimes you lose focus of what you're trying to say, what you're trying to accomplish. And so I like to simplify it, but I like to pack a lot in there. So I'm very selective as to what I include, and because I can draw and I can and I have a more realistic aesthetic, I guess. I'm always tempted to put more. And so my fight is to always like strip away things. And a lot of times in my initial sketches for what I want to do, I have a lot. And then like, okay, then I'm mixing things out. Like, no. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, you only want to do this because you want to show off that you can do it. Not because it's going to make it a better piece. So then I just start stripping it away to its essence. And then like, okay, there it is. It was hiding. And, you know, like sometimes I just have to like move things out of the way so that the true work can be revealed. And it's always something I struggle with. I want to put everything in there. And I'm like, okay, like just start looking at it more carefully. And try again.
Yeah, I really like that, because I'm someone who perpetually over-explains myself and complicates things. And I think particularly when you're working in visual art, it takes a lot of courage to say, I'm going to make a simple image and I'm going to make the simple image stand on its own, and a kind of confidence in that. And, you know, that this minimal work will do what I'm asking it to do is really wonderful. And I'm sure something that comes a lot with time and practice to sort of build that up. But it's, a lot of times I think what separates something that might look more amateur from something that looks professional is just what you say, is that the artist has taken the time to find what in the composition was doing the work, what was doing the heavy lifting, and let that just do its job, and you don't need anything else. Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. You know, I have like I do little workshops. I try to do at least one a year. I like to do more, but it's always a matter of like timing. I'm sure like every artist can identify with having deadlines, and like sometimes all the cool opportunities show up at the same time.
Yeah.
And you can't say yes to everything. And you're like, like right now I wanted to do this workshop. Like right now it's the perfect time. And when I do these workshops, I really love it because I get a chance to talk to the artists or aspiring printmakers, and I get to really, like just drill down. Like, you don't need all this. Strip it away. Strip it down. Keep your focus. And it just. And I wish someone would have said that to me when I was younger. And I tried to instill those lessons in younger artists. Don't waste your time trying to put everything in there. Like, take your time, stretch it out. This is not the last piece you're gonna make.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Is that a lot of times I will feel that way myself when I'm trying to make something that is just like, this has to be everything all the time, constantly. When really you're going to have another shot. You could have another shot tomorrow if you wanted it to create something new. Yeah, I like that a lot.
No, there's just so many things that I wish, part of me loves that I've taught myself how to do many things. Some things I learned in school, some things I taught myself. But like with the printmaking, I've worked with printmakers. I've gotten some tips from printmakers, a lot of great tips from printmakers, but a lot of things I had to learn the hard way. And had I not done that, I wouldn't have attempted the things that I did. But damn it, I just wish like I would have gotten like a heads up on some of the things that just took too long to really resonate with me.
Yeah. So in addition to your own practice, you also have several projects going on, it looks like. And I'm hoping you could maybe speak a little bit to those today, like the Couriers of Hope.
Oh, yeah. So during the pandemic, I got involved in a couple of projects because, everybody was trying to figure out a way. Well, not everybody, but, like a lot of nonprofits and a lot of galleries were trying to figure out how to get people engaged in art, with art, since they couldn't come out to the galleries. And so that was a drive-by gallery. So the work was displayed in the windows, and you could drive by. You didn't have to get out of the car. I mean, you could get out of the car, but you wouldn't go inside the gallery. And so that was cool. Like, and I think about 3 or 4 shows like that. And like, well, there was no consequence on my part. Like I didn't have the stress. Like, oh my God, what if it doesn't sell?
Right.
And that's one of the thing. Like, always stresses me out about an exhibition. That if I put in the work and then like if it doesn't sell, it's gonna hurt my self-esteem. And I want to feel bad. I don't feel bad, it's not that I need the money. I mean, I could always use the money like everybody else, but I've never really cared about making money as an artist. And I should. I'm sure my family would appreciate it if I took a greater interest in this. But I just thought, oh, what a great, like, non-stressful project to get involved with. There's I just create something fun. They show it. We're working with these these school kids, and we're going to do an exchange, or it's all fun, it's all warm and fuzzy, there's nothing on the line where I'm going to lose. For me, it was a win-win, and so that's what for me, that's what that project meant. And I also did this other project where with another gallery, and now I'm gonna feel bad that I can't remember the name of the gallery. But it was putting artwork in in just obscure or obvious places, like on a fence, on a wall, and all over the city, all over the county. And you could just drive around like all day and still not cover all the art sites where art installations. And that was fun too. And it got me a write-up in LA Times. Christopher Knight had gave me a couple made a couple comments about the work, which for me, it was like, that was totally worth it. But had I known that was going to happen, like I would have been stressed out. But the fact that I was expecting nothing and that happened, like that was great. It was like, that was like doing ever. So, I mean, like COVID times in that sense was good for me. I sold work and I got to show the work, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. I had no idea that there were projects like that going on. I love that idea of the drive-by gallery, just as a way to have some semblance of engaging in art in a public way during the pandemic. And it's, Southern California is such a car culture that it just seems really fitting as well that was sort of the method. Yeah.
Well, I always thought that all the galleries should have that as a component of their exhibition, where they would have a portion where people could just walk by or drive by and actually enjoy something.
Yeah.
And, we shouldn't wait for another pandemic.
Yeah.
I thought that was so fun, because people would send me pictures, they tag me on, or text them to me, and we drove by this gallery, and we saw your work, and it was just fun. Everybody felt good about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you also are doing a sort of print of the month project as well. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that is a really fun project. My art dealer, Matt Gleason, and I started doing this print of the month, where we invited 11 artists, 12 including me, to do a print of the month. And I would take their artwork and have a magnesium plate fabricated, and which was basically like a relief plate. And I would run it through my nice Griffin press and make relief prints. And we did it like an edition of 40, and these were non-printmakers. And I just like to get other artists excited about printmaking. I'm hoping that they'll want to do more printmaking. I really think that we cannot have enough printmakers.
Yes, I agree.
And to translate their work, which is not traditionally printed, into a print was interesting for them, and it was interesting for me. And each print, because of the different styles and techniques, was a challenge to print, but one that I was willing to take on, and I really enjoyed it. I'm hoping to do more.
Yeah.
But those things take time, but they're a lot of fun. So I love the artists and helping them create their print and inspire them to do more.
Yeah. Do you think you've made any converts?
I think so. In fact, somebody contacted me today. They went to go see me while I was at the art fair, asking me, if we could work on another one, just outside of the print of the month project, and really do something special. So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So I know at least I have one.
Yeah, that's great.
But that's what I like about like this project, doing the workshops. I always tell people, like, if I'm doing the workshop, I'm aiming for non-print makers. So and I am and I'm not, but basically what I want is for people to not be afraid of it. If I say it's for printmakers, then people who may have an interest will not do it because they think, it's going to be too technical for me. But when I say non-printmakers as well as printmakers, then like, okay, then like there'll be room for me. There'll be a seat for me.
Yeah.
And I know that once I get them in front of a press and once I get them carving, they're going to get excited. I know I did.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you're sort of working like a collaborative printmaker then? Or do you think because you're working with maybe people who've done art, but they haven't done printmaking? Is that correct? Yeah.
Correct. I mean, I try to work mostly with professional artists, and more than anything, because I think when the artists are professional, they're more likely to go through with it. Whereas sometimes people just have an interest, and I'm very careful how I spend my time, and I want to, I want people to respect my time.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to make time for you, I want you to really want to do it. And That way, it's worth both our while. And that's the only reason I prefer working with professional artists. But if someone was very enthusiastic and had a passion for it and they wanted to learn it, I would definitely want to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious, in you're in Bangkok, correct?
Yeah.
What is the printmaking scene there?
Oh yeah.
One thing I love printmakers is that we're so community oriented, and we just are always helping each other. And that's one thing I love about traveling. Anywhere I go, if I find the printmakers, I know it's going to be okay.
Yes, absolutely. And you completely would find printmakers in Thailand. It has such a great printmaking scene here. Thailand is a country that sort of the contemporary arts culture is still very much based in skill and craftsmanship in a way that it really lends itself to printmaking. And so if you ever find yourself coming to Thailand, please let us know. We'd love to host you, but also we could absolutely give you names of workshops and studio and talented artists. There's incredible work here. There's a really amazing studio up in Chiang Mai called CAP Studio. It's the Chiang Mai Art on Paper, so CAP. And the Kirikang Tilakwatanotai, who's the founder and director and a great print friend, he's has been doing it, I'm going to feel embarrassed. I don't know how long, maybe 15 years or something like that. He brings artists in from all around the world to make editions. They primarily do etchings, but they also do relief as well. And then here in Bangkok, we've got a place called Pineapple Print Press, so PPP editions. And they also do etching and woodcut. And there's not a lot of lithography. There's one studio that's just opening up now that does some of the most beautiful plate litho that's, I think, called Lithotopia, I think. So and they do a lot of really nice work. And there's a screen printing studio as well that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head, but it's definitely smaller. Bangkok is the size of New York in terms of population. And,
Really?
Yeah. But we could still count the number of print studios on one hand, unlike New York. So it is definitely a smaller scene, but of course, full of great people and really close knit. So, when we can all travel again, if you like doing some of the print tourism.
That's cool. I am going to be working towards that.
Oh, you absolutely should. It's wonderful. And of course, the food and the beaches and the people, it all lives up to the hype for sure in Thailand. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So please, come on over.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. And I just remembered we also, our podcast, the Hello Print Friend Twitter account does Shop Dog Saturdays. So if you do want to ever show us your shop dog as sort of our slogan, if you do Twitter, we're trying to collect shop dogs from around the world.
I will do that.
Awesome.
So that's right up my alley.
Beautiful. So tell me, what are you looking forward to? And I know it's sort of a funny question in COVID often, but anything like projects or exhibitions or collaborations on the horizon that you want to give a shout out to while we've got you on the air?
Well, right now I don't have anything in the pipeline. We just, every time I say that, something comes through. I'm thinking, I'm going to have time to actually create this new body of work. And then something lands on my lap that's going to compete with that.
Right.
And I finally have some time to do my own, my own work and do this new body of work that I've been trying to get out. And okay, great. I have this big block of time, and we'll see. I'm really looking forward more than anything to creating new work in. I really want to do some big prints, but on my Griffin press, because my wood blocks, they're hand printed, and they're 4 feet by 8 feet. And as much fun as it is, the older I'm getting, the less fun it is to put in that much work.
I bet.
Okay, it's maybe I can slow down. I had a health scare 2 years ago, and it really slowed down not because I don't want to. It's just my body doesn't want to do it. Okay, how can I keep doing these large pieces, but how can I make it easier on myself? And so that's what I'm really looking forward to, is just playing with my press and getting out bigger pieces, but figuring out ways to make it easier for myself.
Yeah. It sounds like finding new challenges to kind of bring it back to the theme, right?
I'll figure a way to make it more difficult.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, excellent. Well, are you keen to do a shop talk with Tim when we wrap up here?
Yeah, I'm up for it.
Oh, excellent. I'm very happy to hear that. So in that case, I'll just kind of pass you on to him so you two can talk some shop. But thank you so much for joining me and talking so wonderfully.
I really appreciate the invite. Like I said, I'm a huge fan, and I look forward to hearing about more printmakers. And like every time you have one, I can't wait to see what they have, what they're discussing. It's like opening up a new book.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Well, I'm really looking forward to sharing your story. And like I said, I just really think the work that you're doing is so interesting and beautiful, but also really important, to open up the conversations about masculinity and how we construct it and why and how that affects people. That's really important work for the health of humans, the health of society. And so I was just really happy to get to talk about it all with you. So thank you for the work that you're doing too.
Thank you again for the invitation. I feel like it's like coming, going and getting a nice warm meal.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, lovely. Well, thank you so much. Well, that's our show for this week. Join me again next week when my guest will be David Sullivan, founder of Black Hand Gang Print Studio in the tropical paradise of Bali, Indonesia. We'll talk about starting your print shop right in the first months of a global pandemic and the exciting Indonesia contemporary art scene. You won't want to miss it. This episode, like all episodes, was written and produced by me, Miranda Metcalf, with editing by Timothy Pauschak and music by Joshua Weber. I'll see you next week.